Alright everyone, this is the final practice midterm, also known as Maryland 4. So as always, you need to submit all your Excel spreadsheets on the actual midterm. And before you start, once you download the file, you should be on the Start Here tab. And remember that before you start, you need to enter your last 2 digits of your student number, your name, and also an M or E depending on which class on Wednesdays you are in MKT 700. On the MD Sales tab, you have the store number, sales in 2001, so more than 20 years ago in that store, and the city of that store. In the MD Population tab, you have the population for each city in the state of Maryland, plus a column you have the proportion of people who are French in that city. So for instance, in the city of Baltimore, the proportion of people who are French is 0.049. So this means that in Baltimore, 4.9% of 277,513 speak French. And in the MD Gender tab, you have the city again, and also the gender proportion. So in Aberdeen, there are 125 women to 100 men. So let's go through the questions. If you've seen the previous, my video recordings for the previous practice tests, I went through each question one by one. And I looked at analyzed the results, did the analyses question by question. Let me do things a bit different this time. You might, depending on your preference, you don't have to, but depending on your preference, you might actually read through all the questions, see what you kind of need, and then have everything on a single master spreadsheet. So let's try to do that in this video. So question 1. For cities with 10,000 or less in French population, what is the city with the second highest amount of sales? Indicate the city, indicate the sales, and indicate the percentage of the population. Question 2. For cities with a gender proportion of 1.1 or higher, which city has the highest sales per population index? Indicate the city, index value, and the percentage of the entire population in the city compared to the state. Question 3. Staying with cities with a gender proportion of 1.1 or higher, suppose that if the French population is less than 10,000, predicted sales will, in 2023 will increase by 12% compared to 2001. Otherwise, that is, if the French population is not less than 10,000, predicted sales will be the same in 2023 as in 2001. Which city will have the highest sales per population index in 2023? And question 4, lastly, consider only cities with more than 12 stores. What is the average female-male ratio in these cities? Okay, so it seems like we need quite a bit. The French population in each city, sales, percentage of the population, gender proportion, the index value, predicted sales in 2023, the index value of 2023, not just 2001. Question 2 is asking about the index in 2001, but question 3 is asking about the index in 2023, sales in 2023, and number of stores in each of these cities. So let's try to have all of this information in one single sheet so we don't create multiple sheets or create multiple tables as in the previous videos. So this is what I am going to do. I am going to create a pivot table first of all on the MD Sales tab. I drag city to rows. I need the sum of sales, and I need the count of store number, right? Okay, I need the population, French population. Well, it seems that we only have the proportion, right? Proportion of French, but we'll ultimately need the French population. The gender proportion, gender, let's just call that gender, and estimated 2003 sales. Let's have all this information for now. So, population, it is in the MD population tab. We need it in a new file. So I'm going to copy this table and put it into a new file. Okay, done. It also seems like we need the gender proportion, the MD gender tab. Copy this table and put it into a new file, or the sheet 2 of the new file. Okay. So then we can go back to the main file, to the sheet 1, to the pivot table, and we can fill most of these columns in. In column D, it's the population in each city. So VLOOKUP to the new table in the new file that we created. This one. Now I'm selecting columns A, B, and C. So city name is in column A, and population is in column C. So 3 columns over. So comma 3, comma O. Done. The proportion of the French. So VLOOKUP again. It's also in this same table, right? But this time it is 4 columns over. I'm selecting columns A, B, C, and D. So comma 4, comma O. Done. The French population is just D4 multiplied by E4, right? 19332 in Aberdeen multiplied by 0.147. D4 multiplied by E4. Let's not worry about the decimal places right now. Gender, it's in the other tab of the new file, and we need to use VLOOKUP once again. VLOOKUP, gender, A4 first of all, gender is in the new file in the other tab. So let's select those 2 columns, and it's column 2. Column 2, column O. Now, 2023 sales. Go back to question 3. It does say that the qualification, it depends on the gender proportion. So maybe we might need to do question 3 separately. So that's fine. Let's keep that separately. But we also need the percentage of the entire population and the index. So percentage of the entire population. So let's create a new column in column I. Percentage of population, percentage of sales, and let's call it a 2001 index. Let me remove column H for now, the 2023 sales. So let's just do that right now. So what is the total population? It can be calculated in the MD population tab. Column C. Right? So I copy it here, I sum it here, and the population is 3827297. So go back to sheet 1. The percentage is D4 divided by 3827297. Is that right? 3827297, yes. Now, remember that we cannot, yes. Remember that there are multiple decimal places, but it will ask us to have 4 decimal places. So just keep that in mind. Percentage of sales. So it is the sales in Aberdeen divided by the total sales. Now the pivot table actually gives you the grand total of sales. In the other practice tests, now we copied and paste, we deleted this row, and we ultimately added the sum of column B of sales in 2001, right? But here, fresh from the pivot table is the grand total of sales, so we just need that, 2534049. So equals B4 divided by 2534049. Let me just check my memory. 2534049, perfect. Okay. And the 2001 index, which is the percentage of sales divided by percentage of population. So I4 divided by H4. There we go. I think we have all the information we need for questions 1, 2, and 4. So let's copy and paste. Okay. Now a few things. French population in column F. Now there cannot be 8/10 of a person, right? So let's reduce that column to no decimals, to whole numbers. Percentage of sale and column H, I, and J, percentage of the population, percentage of sale, and the 2001 index. We need them to be 4 decimal places. Right now there are 6 decimal places. So let's reduce that down by 2. Okay, it seems like we have everything we need for, again, questions 1, 2, and 4. Let's copy this table, paste it into a new sheet as values. So before it was all pivot table, right? It has all the settings, the nice blue coloring. Let's copy that and paste as values. Let's just rename it for our sake. First column is city. Column B is 2001 sales, count, and the other column should be okay. So I think we have all the information we need. Let's see. Question 1. For cities with 10,000 or less French population, what is the city with the second highest amount of sales? All right. So going back to this table, we need to filter. French population, well, let's once again reduce that down to whole numbers. As you might have noticed, when I copied the table from the pivot table, it still included the same in column F to 2 decimal places. We need to reduce that down to whole numbers. In columns H, I, and J, in the previous pivot table, we reduced it down to 4 digits, 4 decimal places. So let's do that again. So this should be good now. Okay. Question 1. For cities with 10,000 or less French speaking population, column F has French population. So number filter, this is now less than or equal to. Less than or equal to 10,000. Do I have 10,000? There we go. With 10,000, yeah, for cities with 10,000 or less, so less than or equal to 10,000, right? So good. What is the city with the second highest amount of sales? Sales in 2001, right? Which is in column B. So let's sort descending, and it is the city of Baltimore. Baltimore. Sales in that city, well, 203,665. 203,665. Percentage of the entire population in the city, which is column H, 0.0073. 0.0073. Question 1 done. So let's clear up. Let me remove the highlighting first, and let me clear up the filters, because question 2 is different. Question 2. For cities with a gender proportion of 1.1 or higher. So let's just do that filtering. Gender proportion is in column G. Now it's 1.1 or higher. So G greater than or equal to, right? 1.1 or higher. Greater than or equal to 1.1. Okay, this seems to be a slight change, not a big change, but a slight change. Some cities are gone now because it was less than 1.1. The question is, which city has the highest sales per population index? We calculated that in column J. Now we need to sort by just 2 smallest. And just to be clear, it's the highest, not the second, not third, but highest. And as we can see, it is the city of Baltimore once again. Baltimore. The index value is 11.0837. And the population is the same as before, actually, question 1, so there you go. Two questions are the same. In question 2, 2C, I guess you could call it, and question 1C are the same. What about question 4? Consider only cities with more than 12 stores. Well, let's take a look. Let me remove the coloring. Okay. Now, let me remove the filter first of all, also. Clear up the filter. Now, for cities with 12 or more stores, we have the store number in column C, right? Okay. So we need to filter column C to 12 or more. So count. Column C is the count of stores. So in Baltimore, there are 155 stores. In Silver Spring, there's 141. We need just cities with more than 12. So count is greater than 12. Not greater than or equal to, it's greater than 12 because it's more than 12 stores. Seems to be a very slight change only. Okay. So let's see. What is the average male to female to male ratio? Well, let's see. The ratio is in column G. Alright. Now, you might be tempted to use the formula. Let me remove the R101 first of all. We don't need the, actually we do need the grand total or else it will ruin. We don't need the grand total. That was in the pivot table. So the pivot table had the formula that depended on the grand total, but we pasted as values to a new sheet. So this grand total row, row 101, is not needed anymore. So let's clear that out. Now, gender proportion is in column G. There's a few ways you can do it. If you know the formula for average, you can do that. But there's another way to do it too. Now, but before we do that, notice, for instance, the Germantown is in row 31. Sykesville is in row 33. So there's a city in row 32 that's hidden because, why? Because it has 12 or fewer stores in that city, right? So, and we filtered it to more than 12 stores. So this is especially true for Apple users. If let's say we want to have the sum, let's just say the sum of the gender proportion. You might be tempted to just use this. Add up sum G2 to G97. This would likely give you an error because it's counting G2, everything from G2 to G97. So this is G24, that's counted. This is G26, that's counted. But it will also count G25, which is hidden between these two numbers, but it will still be counted in this total number, which would be wrong, right? Because we only want the total, let's say, the total of cities with more than 20 stores after the filter, right? So what we need to do is actually copy this table and paste as values to a new table. So to a new sheet. So let me do that. So now there's row 2, row 3, row 4, row 5. All the hidden cities are no longer in this table. Now we can do it. Now, column G is the gender proportion. G2 all the way to G43. If you know the formula for average, it's just average G2 to G43. So equal sign, average, open brackets. What do you want to average? Everything from G2 to G43. So open brackets G2 colon G43 close brackets. So 1.126429. Let me just copy that to here for now. And let me highlight that so it's clear. So that's the total. That's the average gender proportion. That's actually what we need. But I didn't teach you the formula for average. If you know it, that's great. But if you don't know the formula, well, what do we do? Well, let's pretend we don't know the formula for average. The average is simply the total divided by however many number there are, right? If there's 10 boys who are each 10 years old, you add up all of them, 10 plus 10 plus 10, so 100 years old in total divided by 10 boys. Same thing. You know the formula for to sum things up. G2 to G43. That is the sum of all the gender proportion in column G. Equals sum, open bracket, G2 to G43, right? 47.31. How many cities are there in this table? Now, the last city is in row 43. But remember, row 1 is the title's name, right? The column name, right? So it's not 43 cities in this data set. There's 42, right? So it really is this number, 47.31, divided by 42. So it would be G44 divided by 42. And you see, we get the same number. The two yellow cells are the same number, 1.126429. And that is our answer for question 4. 1.1264. 1.1264, rounded to 4 decimal places. Okay, let's go back to question 3 now. Staying with cities with a gender proportion of 1.1 or higher. Suppose that if the French population is less than 10,000, sales will increase by 12%. Otherwise, the sales would remain the same. Now, let's go back to not sheet 3 because this is only showing cities with more than 20 stores, but let's go to sheet 2. Let's remove the filter. Be careful, we filtered it to 20 or more, right? So we need to remove the filter. So let me remove the filter. Okay. Now, 2023 sales. 2023 sales will increase 10% by, let's say, 12% if the French population is less than 10,000. Okay. We create a new column called 2023 sales. If what? French population, which is in F2, is less than 10,000. Less than 10, 1, 2, 3, so 10,000. What happens? Sales in that city, so which is in B2, will increase by 12%, 1.12. If you want to increase something by 12%, you multiply by 1.12, right? Otherwise, sales would stay the same. So otherwise, B2. That's it. So here's the formula again. Equals if, open brackets, F2 is less than 10,000, comma, B2 multiplied by 1.12, comma, B2, close brackets. And do we need the new sales index? We do. Question 3b says indicate the new index for 2023. And the new index, well, we need the sales first, right? We need the total sales. So let me add column K up, all the expected sales in 2023. All right. And let's add all of this up. And this is the sales, total sales we get, the big fancy number. And we need the percentage of sales. We did that previously in column I, but that was for 2001. We need to do the same thing for 2023. So let's create a new column, percentage. It's really proportion really, but just remember that. 2023 sales. Well, 2023 sales is in K2 for Baltimore, divided by that yellow highlight, which is K101. So divided by K2 divided by K $101. Alright. And what is the final index? Let's call it 2023 index, column M. It's the percentage of the percentage of sales, sorry. So which is just what we did, L2 divided by the population in H2. L2 divided by H2. Alright, we are to assume that the population remains the same, only that sales either increase or stays the same depending on the French population. So that's columns L and M. Copy and paste. Done. So, question 3. Now, we need to filter again to gender proportion 1.1 and then find the highest sales index. Now, here, let's see. Now, notice that K, L, and M, because these are new columns we created, it doesn't have the filter. So, what we need to do is clear the filter and put the filter back on. Gender proportion is 1.01. So, greater than or equal to 1.1. 1.1 and not 1.01, right? Yes, 1.1. Highest sales index, which is in the 2023 index, column M, sort, largest to smallest. All right. And we have that number, which so happens to be, again, Baltimore. Baltimore. And now, if you're familiar with the state of Maryland, Baltimore, basically right next to Washington, D.C., Baltimore is the Baltimore Orioles, if you are a baseball fan. But Baltimore is the biggest city in Maryland. Baltimore. Index value, sheet 2, 11.1389. 11.1389. Make sure you are rounding to 4 decimal places properly, up or down. And indicate the predicted 2023 sales, 228,104. 228,104. Notice though, this time it's asking you to round to 4 decimal places. That's but let me just change that. It should be whole values anyways. And on your spreadsheet that you download Maryland for, you should see this change that I'm putting into green right now. I just changed to insert whole values, no decimal places, and you should see that in the file that you download on D2L. And there we go. We have Baltimore as the answer for all 3 of these questions. We have you can call it a new skill, the average, in question 4, but if you know how to find the average or the mean, you already know how to do it with just by knowing the sum and the divide feature in Excel. So once again, these are the answers for practice test or practice midterm Maryland 4.